He really is a genius.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
He is.
I mean, not as genius as me, but, you know.
Obviously.
But we were a good team. I let him sort of take the reins, as it were.
Welcome to Couch Surfing, the show where accomplished guests look back at their big roles, their little roles, and everything in between. I'm here with Guy Pearce. Guy.
Hello.
Hello. Let's see what's on, shall we?
Okay, let's do that.
All right.
This looks all calm and lovely.
Right. But
I don't know if you've ever sat on top of a bus.
I haven't.
On top of a stiletto, driving on a road that, see how there's a curve, you see there's a curve on the road? So the bus, as it sort of swayed from one side of the road to the other, of course, where I was sitting at the top, that sway was like...
I can't imagine.
Was like 30 feet.
I would be terrified.
And I've got this earpiece in with this, you know, La Traviata in my ear, and I can't hear a thing because the wind is just, you know... Yeah, that was a lot harder than it looked, that little scene.
Absolutely. That,
it was worth it, though.
That visual is extraordinary. It looks like a painting come to life.
It's pretty great, isn't it?
The world has definitely changed since then, but were you at all worried about there being a stigma attached to you playing a man who dresses in drag?
No, I wasn't. Okay. I mean, I had people saying to me, "Oh, are you sure you want to do this?" You know, I was like, "Yes! Absolutely, I want to do this." You know, I was so excited about it. Yeah, it was just a hoot. You know, the whole thing was fantastic.
And it was so incredibly well received worldwide. A 10-minute standing ovation at Cannes Film Festival alone.
Yeah, I didn't get to go to Cannes.
I heard. I'm sorry.
But listen, I got to, you know, I rode on the coattails of that film for the next 25 years. So.
And what coattails they were to ride. Now, could there be a Priscilla 2?
There's been a lot of talk about it over the years, and I think Stefan, our writer-director, has sort of entertained the idea, but I think, you know, it's sort of best left alone. It's that sort of attitude that I think he kind of has, you know.
What would that even look like now?
Well, pretty tragic now, because we're all about 100. three sort of tragic old drag queens coming, doing a show. Go on, love. I don't know. I mean, it could be funny.
All right, next up.
Go for it.
Okay.
Speaking of drag queens.
This was a game changer.
Look, this was well, it's an incredible film. It was just incredible for me to land this as my first job in the States. And funnily enough, Russell and I were the first two cast. He was cast first, and then I was cast next. And then I remember Arnon Milchan saying to Curtis Hanson, "Are you going to cast any Americans in this movie? Or is this going to be sort of the Australian show cast?"
You Australians, man, Hollywood loves you all. What is it? You, Russell,
we're just
Kate
amazing. Oh my gosh, we're so incredible.
Seriously?
People often ask that question.
What's in the water there?
Acting juice.
Acting juice.
Yeah, it's good acting juice.
We need some
I'm
of
not
that.
sure what it is, but the funniest thing Russell ever said to me was that he and I were the last two over the bridge before they took the toll off the bridge. Because then the floodgates opened. I mean, everybody on a television show now here in America is Australian, and I've never even seen them before, so.
Right. Next up.
This was a 25-day shoot, and the last 2 days of the shoot were scheduled all the black and white stuff in the movie. All the stuff of me in the motel room, in the black and white stuff. And so I was rehearsing that stuff on my own in my motel room each weekend as we were going through the weeks of the film. And I kept saying to Aaron, our producer, there's no way in the world we're going to get all of that black and white stuff in the last 2 days of the shoot. This is just impossible, you know. And in the last week, he came to me and said, "I've got a gift for you." I went, "Oh, really? It's very kind of you. What is it?" And he said, "Day 26. So we got an extra day, and even then it was pretty tight. But
so when you initially read this script, were you able to make sense of it?
I was, only because my agent, when he sent it to me, wrote at the bottom of the letter, "By the way, it all goes backwards." So I was sort of prepared to kind of, you know that I was going to be sort of confused by it to some degree. Chris is such a beautiful writer, Chris Nolan, that there was no question about the emotional sort of nature of the story. Right. Aside from the structure of it, the emotional nature of it I got immediately as soon as I read the script. What was interesting was that in a normal film, you know, you're aware of where you've been 10 scenes before and how that affects where you might be now and where you're going, etc. This character clearly doesn't remember any of that. So really, he was just sort of turning up in every moment. I sort of had to let go of what, as an actor, you might normally sort of hang on to. So it was it was a freeing kind of process, really.
All right, next clip.
Ah, yes. This is my favourite film out of all the films that I've ever done.
Really?
Yeah, The Proposition.
Okay, walk me through exactly why. Obviously written by legendary cult singer and songwriter
I think Nick Cave,
yes.
exactly. Because it's set in Australia, and because I have such a, I don't know, going out into the desert and experiencing Aboriginal life and the spiritual sense that's out there, as well as what John Hillcoat is able to portray on screen as far as a mood. It's so powerful, this film, and it's right up my alley.
You make music as well. You put out a few albums. Did you and Nick Cave ever jam? Was there ever any downtime?
You're not jamming with Nick Cave.
You're not jamming with. What are you doing with Nick Cave if you're not
talking
jamming?
about this stuff. No, I don't want to talk with Nick about music.
You don't.
I'm a bit like this with Nick and his music. You know.
Okay.
Hey Nick, what do you think of my song, man? No? I mean, you know. Stop it, guy. Just put the guitar away.
Okay. Next clip.
I've been terribly busy.
Doing what?
Kinging.
Really?
I love that line. I love that line.
It's such a great film, and Colin,
Kinging.
Kinging. Colin is so lovely. He's so funny to work with. He's just brilliant. In fact, I remember when we were walking up the stairs after having filmed this scene, we were talking about him being in a kilt, and that should be the poster shot. Was this sort of shot up his kilt of his bum, and he was saying, "Yeah, the King's Peach. That should be the name, the King's Peach." So he's very witty. Look, it was
would have gladly watched
that movie.
a double feature, in fact.
A double feature.
That would have
exactly.
been fantastic. Next up.
The Man of Iron. The Ironing Man. You don't see him with an iron once, though, do you?
No. Able to starch buildings in a single bound.
He should have hit me with an iron.
Or an ironing board.
An ironing board.
At the very least.
Ironing board 3.
Okay, so talk to me about fighting Robert Downey Jr. in Birkenstocks. I've got to hear this story.
As you say, I'm wearing Birkenstocks.
Yes.
I was doing a fight scene in my Birkenstocks. You didn't see them in the movie, of course. We were was here up. And we were literally just in the middle of the scene. Right. And at a certain point, he just stops and goes, "Hang on a second, are you wearing Birkenstocks?" I said, "Yeah." "Is that all right?" He said, "Firstly, what are they doing on set? And secondly, I've never fought another actor in Birkenstocks before." And he sort of just had a moment of being really thrown. He sort of had to kind of collect himself. This was Iron Man. I'm surely he could deal with Birkenstocks.
I'm sure he could.
But maybe that's the undoing. It's his kryptonite.
That's his Birkenstocks.
Yes, Iron Man. I will Birkenstock you to death. No, get it away from me.
I can't do it.
Can't handle it. This Birkenstock.
Okay, up next.
No, this is Mildred. This was one of those jobs. My agent called and said, "Todd Haynes and Kate Winslet would like you to come and play Monty Barragon in HBO's, and I sort of just said yes before the conversation was even finished.
Really?
Yeah, I said, come on.
So Kate Winslet had you at hello.
Yeah, pretty much. I'd been a fan of hers since Heavenly Creatures, and so I think she's incredible.
And she must have been a joy to work with, I would imagine.
She really was spectacular, and she was in every scene, in every shot. There was so much work that she had to do, and she was the consummate pro. And the role was great. I mean, Monty Barragon was just, to play a sort of not necessarily a cad, but just to play somebody who lives on that kind of charm. Was,
a rogue.
Yeah, yeah. It was so beautifully written. That's the thing. I think if something's beautifully written, if the characters are well realised and the way in which characters are viewed is sophisticated and complex and interesting, then it's there. It's just done for you. You don't have to do any work to a degree.
You dive in.
You dive in. Yeah.
Right.
What else have you got there? This is The Innocents. This is the new show that we have out, and. The one thing that Farron Blackburn, our director, said to me when we first spoke was, look, this is a story about these women that have this rare genetic condition where they shapeshift. They can't control it, they shapeshift. But I want you to know from the outset the way we're going to treat it is like it's a completely feasible medical condition.
Got you.
Rare, unusual, weird, but feasible.
And you play a professor who wants to cure them of this shape-shifting ability.
I want to get to the bottom of it.
Okay.
I want to try and understand it. But the great thing about the character is also we realise that his ego is playing a big part in this as well. He wants to make a name for himself. He kind of gets in over his head. So So it's, you know, it's an interesting journey for him as well.
Now, is this one of those moments when, say, a Netflix calls, you say yes, or is there any apprehension about
Well, no
returning
apprehension.
to television?
No. I would only have apprehension returning to television if it was the kind of television I'd done years ago.
Gotcha.
That, you know, and not that there was anything wrong with that, but the thing that draws you to a character also wears thin quite quickly in a way. There's something therapeutic about acting, and this, you know, once you kind of get something out of your system, you kind of have to leave it behind. And if you reach that point while you're still filming, you're in trouble. So I'm a much better sprinter than I am a long distance runner.
I like that. I like that analogy. Thanks for coming by and being my guy.
Pleasure, thank you.
All right, you can catch The Innocents airing now on Netflix. See you next week on Couchsurfing.